Thank you very much for coming. This is my 9th Intelligent Content Conference, and I'm super excited to be here as always because what I find is, for whatever reason, this little conference that can in the desert attracts the smartest people. And I say that not to suck up, well, I say it sort of to suck up to you, but mostly it's true. The people who come here are truly some of the smartest people I've ever met. And it's a great place to test new ideas. And so what I want to do, and I've done this every year pretty much as I come and talk at Intelligent Content, from the first time that I drove out in my car out to Palm Desert when it was just a tiny little show in the middle of this really very cool uber chic hotel in Palm Springs, to the time that it was in San Jose, and now here, it's just this wonderful place to test new ideas and sort of poke at things. And so my goal today over the next half hour or so is not to give you any answers, but maybe to ask a couple of questions, just a lens maybe for us to look through as you go through the rest of these days and hear from these amazing speakers about all of the things that they're doing with content and engagement. And so I'll start with a question, which is, did you know that the shipwreck was an invention? It is. The shipwreck is the plane crash was also an invention. The shipwreck and the plane crash, both inventions. And this is an idea that comes from this guy, Paul Virilio. Paul Virilio is a French culturist, philosopher, sociologist. I think that's the job title for most French people I've ever met. And he talks about this idea of how once a technology enters the culture, once a technology invades the culture, you have to understand that when you invent the technology, you also invent the inevitable disaster resulting from that technology. You invent the ship, you inevitably invent the shipwreck. You invent the plane, you inevitably invent the plane crash. You invent American democracy and you get, well, wait a minute, we won't go there. But this is a really interesting metaphor, I think, for where we are with marketing and technology and content today. Because technology has enabled us to come so far, so fast. But it also, in many ways, here we are 17 years into this digital evolution, revolution, the technology-enabled way that we create content, and in many ways, it's what's getting in our way. Our fascination with the technology has inevitably invented lazy marketing sometimes, where we're so fascinated with building Twitter followers and likes and engagement and traffic and web traffic and looking at all these dashboards that we forget what it is to actually create any meaning. And this is just a lens that I think I want us to look through for a little bit, is to how we actually lost our way a little bit on the road to the digital transformation. Because the digital transformation is a big thing. Like, if you haven't heard, the digital transformation is like a thing now. So here's a funny story. We used to make fun, and still do to on many occasions, this idea of the enhance, right? This is the classic thing that you see in CSI, right? The cop comes up to the techno geek who's pounding away at the keyboard and going, it's like, there, stop, frame number 72, back it up. The street light, focus in on that, enhance it. And the pixels go like this really cool user interface, and he's like, enhance that. And now we see reflected in the street light the license plate of the car in reverse, which they do out 30,000 times smaller than it actually is, and they go, that's the killer's car. Now, why they build a UI into that, I have no idea. It's really silly, and we totally make fun of it. Except here's the weird thing, it's actually happening, it's true. What you see on the screen right there is actually an experiment that they did just 2 years ago in the UK, where they had a guy, they put him in front of a passport-like photo opportunity, and they zoomed in on his eye. And when they zoomed in on his eye, the high-def camera was basically so high-def that they were able to make out people behind him in the reflection of the iris of his eye, 30,000 times smaller than they actually appeared. And when they zoomed in, they could actually make out someone. The technology that we're creating today is outpacing in many ways even our ability to comprehend what we can do with it. And this is a really interesting thing for where we are with marketing today. Because when we look at the digital transformation of our business and content and technology and all of the things that we're doing, in many ways, the technology that we already have outpaces our ability to know what the heck to do with it. When we look at the digital transformation, this is a Google Trends report of the term digital transformation. I was a little surprised at this because I thought we were kind of doing it. I thought we started this whole journey in 2000 with the dot-com bust and boom, and then all of a sudden we were transforming our businesses digitally, but it turns out we're not. And the digital transformation has now become like a thing over the last couple of years here as we look. In the early 2000s, of course, when we were looking at our digital czars, remember that? We were going to have digital czars. Why did we get, I mean, we were already fascinated with Russia at that point. So we were looking at these digital czars who would come in and transform our business digitally, but only would take 2 years. They would work themselves out of a job, said Gartner in 2000. They'll only be here for 2 years, and then they'll work themselves out of a job because we will be digitally transformed and our world will be automated and unicorns will fall from the sky. And where did it go? Well, as it turns out, we didn't really do a very good job of digitally transforming ourselves. We've been really just rolling along in classic modes of what we've been trying to do from marketing and content and technology. And basically what we did was we faxed ourselves the future. We digitized the analog world. We took a picture of it. And we started making metaphors for the way that we actually manage and use content. We now have e-books. We have white papers. We still call them white papers, folks. But they print out maybe on white paper, but they're PDFs. We don't call them white PDFs. I don't know why, but we don't call them that. We call them web pages. Below the fold, we still say. Web visitors, shopping carts. We still have taken this sort of analog, and the semantics of this are fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but we haven't really changed the way that we think and evolved into this digital transformation and what it is we can actually do with the technology we have. The content technology revolution, whether it's CMSs, blogging tools, social tools, all the tools that we create and distribute and manage content with, have basically really removed the value of the content itself in many cases. This is a really hard thing for some storytellers and content people to actually really get their heads around. The classic example of this is I have this long walk. I travel a lot. And I get off the airplane in American Airlines terminal in LAX, and there's this long-ass walk that you have to take from the terminal out to the luggage area. And there's a moving sidewalk. And it's probably the length or longer of this hall here. And along one wall, they sell that as advertising. And inevitably, Salesforce or some movie company or somebody will buy that space in that ad space. And I'm kidding you not, every single time I see the content there, it is the same banner ad that I see online, repeated 22 times. What a wasted opportunity to do something interesting with that space. But instead, we just dashed it off. Somebody dashed it off in Photoshop. There's the movie, there's the headline, there's the call tag. Boom, go to this website and repeat it 22 times. To what? Fill that space. And in many cases, this is what we're doing with technology, too. We're just so pressured these days to create so much content that it's really difficult for us to actually focus on quality. So often, I hear the lament when I work with you guys in your businesses, and I hear, yeah, I would really love to actually have a strategic editorial calendar, but my strategic editorial calendar right now is a to-do list. I'm already late. The thing that we're going to, when is the publishing date? The publishing date is when the thing is finished. When it's done, we publish it. Why not next week? Because it's late. It's already late. We have to get it out. And this is where we are. Your future, and I loved what Pavan from IBM said yesterday for any of you who attended the artificial intelligence, when he talked about the idea of content practitioners and marketers really having the ability to change the entire scope of the business. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that your future does not lie in your ability to manage content, create copy, and create current ideas of content for the business. I believe absolutely that our future as content practitioners, as marketers, is in our ability to invent new customer experiences. Because as Pavan said yesterday around artificial intelligence, he said, look, artificial intelligence is the engine and content is the fuel. If you fill an engine full of bad fuel, you will get bad results. When we look at this, and we look at the marketers out there today, and what I see out there, technology has become our focus. It has become the thing that we're sort of myopically wrapped our heads around. When we look at, there's a MarTech research study that was done, when they looked at some of the your MarTech stack, and what they found was basically 8% of you feel like you've got the tools and you utilize them fully. 8%. We've got all the marketing tech tools that we need, and we use them fully. 33% rather, don't have the tools and don't use them fully. 25% of us, we've got all the tools and we don't use them fully. In other words, we've got the tools that we need, but we don't use them all the way. And 34% of us have basically don't have all the tools and don't have the ones that we have fully utilized. We're basically on this rat race treadmill where we're on this thing where we get a new piece of technology, we don't use it to its fullest extent, and then we look for the new thing, and we look for the new thing. And we're constantly in this technology acquisition role before we can actually get good at what we need to get good at to begin with. Joe showed this research, and this is fascinating to me because when we looked at content technology in this research that we just performed, we found basically the same thing. Was that so many of us don't feel like we have all of the tools that we need to do what we need to do with content. And the interesting thing to me is when we look at this even further, when we said, well, where's the greatest education need that we have? Number one was technology. Number one was education about technology. And again, this is fine. Using technology to scale, to create new and interesting experiences is what we should be doing. But we're actually, interestingly, not using the technology in many ways to do exactly that. And another study that I found just fascinating was one that was just performed at the end of last year for their 2017 study from the American Marketing Association, where they looked at the confidence of marketers. And they said, marketers are extremely confident right now. I don't feel that. I don't feel that level of confidence when I go out and do all of the work I do with the different brands out there. I feel they feel good, but there's not a lot, there's an unease right now about where we are in marketing. The measurement problem, the scalability problem, creating content, I'm trying to get my team going, I'm trying to figure out measurement, all these things. There's an unease right now. We're in this, where it's kind of a breathless pace right now that I feel out there. And to me, when I looked at this, it made me go, what are they so confident about? Because if you look actually at the research, every other category is down. Their ability to be customer-centric, down. Their ability to have the right team and operating model in place, down. Their ability to measure things, down. Every bit of confidence is down, except for one category, which is astronomically off the charts of why they're so confident and encouraged. And yeah, you guessed it, it's technology. Technology is going to come in, and we're going to get new technology that's going to solve the problem. Our biggest problems are all going to be solved by technology. And how now we're at the cusp of this new thing. I mean, we had this whole day yesterday about marketing artificial intelligence and VR and AR and all these things and AI, oh my. We're creating all these new technologies. And some of them are actually going to start creating content. It's going to actually create content for us. Possibly, maybe. Is it true? Well, interestingly, it's starting to actually happen. So this was a screenplay. What they did was researchers put in, I think it was some very, very large number of science fiction screenplays into a computer and had an algorithm write a screenplay. And then they got a bunch of actors together to actually perform this screenplay. You can go Google this. It is absolutely a horrific movie. And I don't know if that says more about the quality of the movies that they put into the database or whether this just says something about the status and current abilities of AI. It's actually very funny if you go watch it. But then there's another thing, which I actually started to look at. There's a site called JukeDeck. And if you've seen JukeDeck, what you can do is you can actually have an artificial intelligence engine create a song for you. So I had a song. I had the AI machine create a song for us here at Intelligent Content. Now I'm a big 80s fan, so I created a little bit of an 80s song for us here that I felt like would set the mood and really create. Now this is all created by a robot. This song is created for you by a robot. And it provides a nice little soundtrack to the movie, as you can see. And here's the wonderful thing about this thing. I can actually have the robot buy this or create this, and then I can buy the rights to it. I can buy the copyright rights to it, so it becomes authored by me. Now, that's a really interesting thing when we start looking at when the AI gets better or when we start looking at higher quality content coming out of these technologies and tools, where we can actually start to have robots create content that we ourselves can then purchase and or acquire the rights to if we do that. But this is where content and marketing is today. And I think it's a really interesting challenge for us and a lens for us to look through. Because what I find so often is that thoughtful strategy in many cases has just given way to execution. I had somebody come up to me at one of the conferences that I was speaking at, and he said, I just didn't get a job. And I said, well, tell me about that. And he said, yeah, I didn't get a job because I went in, and it was for a content job, and they asked me how many pieces I could create, how many content pieces that I could create, papers and articles and social posts and stuff like that. And I said, and the guy said, well, it's going to take some time, and I have to actually sit with you, and we're going to develop a strategy and a strategic editorial calendar. And they said, no, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. We just need you to create stuff because we have to get out to market. We have to get content into the hands of our sales guys. We have to get content out into the marketplace. How many can you do? And he said, I don't know until you do a strategy. And he didn't get the job. Creative insight has given way to failing fast. I'm kind of sick of the failing fast thing. Because what we're doing now is this, instead of thinking about what would be the most creative and interesting things we can do, it's just like, let's do it and see if it fails. Let's just throw crap up against the wall and see which one sticks.